What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dad Does Videos. Today I'm coming at you from my basement where I'm going to put together yet another 3/4 size arcade cabinet from Arcade1Up. This one, as you can see, is Golden Tee Classic. It also has Golden Tee 2K, Golden Tee 99, and Golden Tee 98. These were really big bar video games in the late 90s and early 2000s, so I jumped at the chance to purchased the 3/4 size cabinet when Arcade1Up made it available recently. I've put together a bunch of other cabinets in the background. Here you can see the NBA Jam one. We've done the cocktail table of Miss Pac-Man that also has Dig Dug, Galaga, things like that on it. So follow along with me. If you'd like some pointers, we'll go through it step by step and give you all the directions you need to build your own Golden Tee cabinet. Okay, so before we get started building, I just wanted to give you a brief look inside the package. When I opened it up, as you can see, Arcade1Up does a really nice job and an efficient job of packing all these materials. It kind of reminds me of what IKEA does. When everything's flat, they don't waste any space or anything like that. So I'm gonna get all our materials and tools laid out, give you a shot of what that looks like, and then we'll get started building it. Okay, so we have all of our pieces spread out all over the floor, so we can tell easily where each piece is. So if you haven't put one of these Arcade1Up machines together in the past, they do a really nice job with the instructions. As you can see here, they tell you right off the bat what kind of varying pieces, parts, cords, hardware that you'll need, and everything's numbered. As you can see here, they have the letters marking each of the different pieces and parts. So if you go over to how mine are laid out right here, you can see all the letters on each of the pieces. And it's really helpful because when you're going through the instructions, they'll tell you to connect, piece L to piece whatever. And it's really helpful to just have these stickers on them. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but it's really, it really makes the process that much easier. One thing to note before we get started is you might be tempted to use a drill, but the nice thing about these is all you need is that Phillips head screwdriver right there. That is the only piece, the only tool that you'll need throughout this whole thing, which makes this kind of a piece of cake to put together. All right, so let's get started with step one. As you can see here, you need piece G along with 4 of the A's, and these are dowel rods. So I found these, right? Just like all the other pieces, all the other smaller pieces like these screws and dowel rods and things like that come with a bag that has the letter on it, so it's really convenient to know what you're doing. So we've got A, we've got then our piece G as well right here. One thing you want to notice when you're doing this step and you want to pay attention to, as you can see, there are 4 holes on each side. You want to put the dowel rods on the inner ones on each side. So if you are actually looking at the piece itself, one goes right here and the other goes right here. You want to stay away from the ones that are closer to the edge per the instructions. So we're going to go ahead and put our dowel rods in. Okay, on to step 2. So we get piece G, the piece that we just put our dowel rods in. So I've got that ready to go right here. And we are simply going to insert that into the bottom of piece D. And my piece D is leaning against my couch, as you can see right here. And just to pay attention in the instructions, you'll notice that on the bottom of piece G, that's where the ridge is right here. So you want to make sure that the ridge is still down, so to speak, when you put this in. And notice you're going to use the screws here as well. So in reality, we are going to be attaching piece G like this in using the screws. Okay, so let's get a real look at this. So I've got my piece G, the ridge is down. I'm going to slide these 2 dowel rods into the holes on the opposite side here that are closest together. So those are locked in, and then your B screws go in each of the other holes. So get that one in, let me get this one in, and then grab my Phillips head and tighten these up. So we're moving along to step 3, and this, as you can see, requires 16 dowel rods along with the pieces K, K, L, and M. So we're just going to use our dowel rods just like we did before. And here are your pieces that we'll need. And we simply just put those dowel rods in. Now, as you can see on the directions here, you can see the X's for K, K, L, and M. And what they're trying to tell you, as you can see on these, they just don't want you to put the dowel rods in the middle hole, just put them on the sides. Okay, so let's move along to step 4, and even though this says step 5 here, I promise you it is actually step 4. So we're going to use our piece M from the step that we just finished, along with piece B. And we also are going to use some new equipment. So we've got one of the E's up here and 4 screws that are C's. So in actuality, this is what this looks like. So when you're kind of dry fitting this, so to speak, to get this all set up, just make sure your holes for piece M are up against B, and it doesn't matter which way this piece fits. Piece E, it could go like this, or if you want to flip it over, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing all the way around. So we're going to put our C screws in there, and we're also going to put those dowel rods in piece B, 2 on each side. And as again, you'll note there are 3 holes on each side of piece B. You're going to put those dowel rods in the holes that are closest to the sides. All right, so we're moving along to the real step 5, and what we're going to do is attach all of those pieces that we completed in step 3 along with our combo B M piece that we just finished as well. And we're going to connect that to the larger piece, the side of the cabinet that we already have set up. So that's, again, this piece with G on the bottom. And as you can see, we're sliding each piece in to the relevant slot on the cabinet side and then attaching it with a screw for B. So let me give you a view of what this looks like. So just a quick tip on putting these in. I know it may seem self-explanatory for some of you out there, but we have our 2K pieces, and one of them is already installed, as you can see on the bottom. And what we're going to do with the other one, as you can see here, is just insert it into these holes right here. Remember, we have our dowel rods. So you just simply put that in, just like that. And then the screw goes in the middle hole on the other side. And that's, of course, when you get your Phillips head and tighten everything up. Simple as that for each one of these. You'll also note, and it references this in the instructions, we have the screws are facing inward. So this screw right here on K and that one, they're facing in towards the cabinet, and the screws, as you can see, you can't see them because they're on the other sides. On the other side, they're facing in towards the cabinet as well. Okay, so for step 6, we are taking piece A and connecting the 4 white E pieces along with the screws. So when you're finished with that, it should look like this. All right, so this is not the next step in the directions, but having built other Arcade1Up machines, I'm going to do this right now. You have to be careful if you're going to do this right now. But what I like to do is take off the film that's on the screen. Typically in the directions, Arcade1Up waits until a few more steps to do that. But what I have found is that it gets a little more challenging later on because the screen is already locked into your cabinet, and it makes it hard to get the plastic up, off, around the screws, and at the top of the screen when it's more kind of locked in to the cabinet. So what I'm going to do is start the process to take this off. What I also like to do is gently loosen, but not take out, these screws so the plastic it's easier to remove. So again, not the next step for real, and I'm doing it just because it's easier for me to do it right now. If you're going to follow what I'm going to do, just be very careful with your screen as you're installing moving forward. Okay, so for step 7, as you can see, we take that piece that we've been working with, piece A, and we slide it in to the slot on the side of the cabinet that we've also been working with. So, in reality, there's our slot. And you'll also note the holes right here and right here, and that's where we're going to connect our piece A as we slide it in with the screws so that our screen is attached to our cabinet. Moving along to step 8, you can see we're just simply sliding piece H in. So I've got my piece H, and let's just go ahead and do this together. It simply goes right in this slot. And when you do this though, as you can see up top here, you have to just kind of shimmy it into this groove and get down. Now, what you also want to be aware of is that this writing on the outside, or on one side of this, goes on the outside of your cabinet. So you're going to slide it in down, so to speak, like that. So that, and make sure it fits into the groove at the bottom, and we're good to go. Okay, so just a quick tip here before we put on the other side of the cabinet. You'll want to make sure that the wire coming from behind your BM piece right here kind of sneaks behind your screen. And the reason is because later on you are going to have to attach that wire into this control box. So you can see I already kind of made it available. You can see my wire coming down right here. Because if you don't do that, it's going to be trapped up here, and guess what? You're going to have to go back and basically undo what you've done to get the wire out of there. So just a little heads up. And this is where the cabinet starts to take shape a little bit. So we're going to get the other side of our cabinet, and as you can see, that's step E here, and then use the 6 screws to attach it to all the other pieces and parts. Now, this part can get a little tricky just in terms of kind of attaching all these different parts at once. What I would suggest is when you do this, you want to not screw in each screw all the way at first. Maybe go halfway and leave some wiggle room, because inevitably you're going to have to kind of move some pieces and parts kind of around when you're trying to fit all the different screws in at once. Okay, so once you've gotten your other side of the cabinet installed, you want to move on to step 10, and that entails you standing up your cabinet. And all you're going to do with this one is basically insert those 4 screws to attach the other side of your screen to the newly installed side of the cabinet. So we just did that. Mine's standing up. We just put those screws in right here and then right there. Okay, so for step 11, you just grab your piece I, and that's the one that has all the game logos on it. So this big piece, and we're just simply going to slide it right in the front of, we're just going to slide it right in the front of the cabinet. This is actually pretty easy. So let's get you a good view. And again, this is where on top you could see the grooves, right? We're just gonna put this one in the second groove, so to speak, back on each side and just slide it in. You're gonna go push it all the way to the bottom. The grooves will stop near the end, and that tells you when you should stop, as you can see down there. And then we're simply gonna grab piece J right here, and then we're gonna slide that into the angled slot on your cabinet. Right here. So to back up a little bit, just so you have better view. And when you're doing this, just make sure the piece is flipped around so you don't see the letter J. It should be on the inside. Just slide it in. And again, the grooves will stop. That's how you know when to stop. Okay, so we're moving along to step 14. As you can see right here, we're going to attach the control deck to the cabinet itself. So here's our control deck ready to roll. And on the back of your cabinet, you will find this. What you want to do is just take the tape off right here, and that will loosen the ribbon up that will allow you to connect it to your control deck. So this is a view of your control deck. You're gonna plug that end of that ribbon right in here. Okay, and once you have that ribbon connected to your control deck, just set it up on the space where it's going to be eventually screwed in. Before we screw it in though, we are going to take the plastic covering off of the protective part that goes over the control deck. So whether you start from this corner down here or somewhere else, you can take the plastic off. And just note, there are a couple pieces of tape here that you'll want to remove before you do that. Okay, so for step 15 here, all we are doing is using our B screws, the remaining B screws, to attach the control deck along with the protective cover to the cabinet itself. So we already have, of course, our control deck and the cover sitting on the cabinet. So we're just going to put our screws in 1, 2, 3, 4 to secure everything in place. And a quick tip when you're putting on your control deck, you want to untape this wire right here so it hangs down, because you're going to have to connect that underneath basically the cabinet or in the back of the cabinet to the control panel later, and it is much easier if there's a little slack here. Alright, so we are moving along to step 16, and this is where we just make a couple connections in the back. So we've got our cord X right here in our hands, and we are going to plug this end of it right into the bottom of the control panel on the back of the machine. And then we are also going to take the cord from our BM that, if you recall, there was a little reminder that to make sure that's hanging down from that piece of the arcade cabinet from earlier. So with X, we're gonna plug this right in under here, and then we're gonna take that cord that's hanging down, and that's this one over here, and that simply goes into the side right there. And we are moving along to step 17, and this is a quick one. All we have to do is connect the wires in the back. So we have one from the control panel and then one that is coming from the control deck. So in reality, let's see if we can get this. So we have this one from the control panel, and then in the background, we have this one from the control deck. Can we just connect these? Okay, so we're moving along to step 18, and we get our piece F, and that is the back of the cabinet. And we're going to use our wire that we just installed into the back of the cabinet into our control panel on the back and thread it through piece F. So as you can see here, it just comes in through the back and kind of stops or gets snug in the hole at the bottom of F. So let's get a real view of this as we do this kind of real time, so to speak. So there's our hole, and this is our wire, and this is going to come through from the back. So there's a, hopefully you can see pretty well, there's a ridge on this white piece that is going to lay right in the center of this hole once we pull this through. So we just thread this in and just gonna push a little bit. And it's supposed to be a little bit tight. That's the idea. There we go. So it's snug in there. You can see on the side that there's a little bit sticking out. And if I pull on it, like it's not going anywhere. That's how it should look. And we move along to step 19, and that's simply securing the back of the cabinet piece F into place with our screws. So at the bottom of our cabinet, you just want to make sure you slide piece F into this ridge, and then you're going to put the 3 screws in. There's one here. And then even though there are lots of spaces up here, you're gonna put one right there and one on the other side too. And then of course the last part, probably one of the easiest steps, right? We just take our cord Y and plug the end of it into the cord that is now sticking out of the bottom of our arcade cabinet. And typically this would be the end of this, but this came with the riser, so we're gonna get into that before we actually turn this thing on and see if it works. Okay, so let's get started building the riser. As you can see in step 1 here, we need 2 RNs and 2 RPs and 16 dowel rods, and we've got that equipment here. Here are all of our pieces set and ready to go. And it's hard to see on the instructions, but there are multiple holes on each side of these pieces. So for instance, on this RN, let's see if we can get a shot of this. See, we have multiple holes. So what we're gonna do with our dowel rods is put them on the 2 innermost holes on each side. Okay, so for step 2, we're gonna put the same sides basically across from each other. So as you can see, the RNs are across from each other, RPs are across from each other, and then use the screws, the B screws, to attach the RNs to the RPs as indicated here. I'm going to do that, and then we'll show you what it looks like. One thing to note here, and I guess it sounds goofy, but make sure to turn your sides so that the stickers on them are facing inwards. There's nothing like getting done with this and then noticing that you have the wrong sides facing out. Okay, and here is what step 2 looks like in terms of the result. One thing to keep in mind, just a check for you here, when you're putting in these 2 sides here, the RP is the ones without the green on them. Make sure that you have the sides up that have the holes in them, because you're going to need those later. If they were flipped around the other way, go ahead and undo those and put them in the right way. So we're going to move to step 3 now, and we're going to use our last 2 pieces. RO and RM, and then simply attach them to the sides that still have the black. So there's one's going to go on this side and one is going to go on the other side, and we'll attach those with the remaining 4 B screws. And here is what your riser should look like after step 3. We're all ready to go for the next step, and that is step 4, where we're going to take our remaining pieces, and those are right over here by the wall, and then just screw them right into the riser, right on top of where the holes are. So one's going to go this way, and the other's just going to go like that. Okay, so here is the finished riser. We have one more step to do, and this is the front, by the way. So we're going to pick up the cabinet, and if you have a friend nearby, probably helpful to have a little help with that, and put the cabinet right in here, and then we are going to insert some screws onto the sides and into the cabinet itself so it is attached to the riser. So we'll get the cabinet on top of the riser and then show you what to do next. Okay, so we have our cabinet up on the riser, like so. Everything looks good to go. So if you consult your directions in step 5 here, the only thing left for us to do is put 2 screws in each side of the riser. We have our RC screws right here. And this one requires a little bit more effort than some of the other screws that you've put in. So when you put these in right here and right here, there's no kind of pre-drilled hole on the other side in the cabinet because you know, Arcade1Up doesn't know if you're actually going to use the riser or not. So you just have to push a little harder with your Phillips head screwdriver when you drive these screws in. Okay, as you can see, we have our cabinet sitting on the riser. Our screws are in the side and the other side. This is, I'm going to just shake it a little bit. Nothing's coming out. So we're set there. We are ready to turn this on. Make sure everything is set up. We've got the lights coming on. It's telling us it's loaded. There we go. Looks like we are in good shape. Yeah, so this is the point where we can pick our game, and the way you do this is you just scroll using the trackball. So you go up and down and pick whatever you want, and when you are settled, you press that start button and you jump in. Thanks for joining. Hope you enjoy your golden tee.